third chapter. Now, since we were introduced to this thing called Eruv, and Eruv is, we say, it's not the boundary, it's the food that you put. We're going to discuss the beginning of the food, of how to place it and where to place it. So that's it. We are in Perek Shlishi, third chapter, Mishnah Aleph, first Mishnah. Bechol, which means in any kind of food, you can use any kind of food. Bechol mazon me'arvin. In any kind of food, you're allowed to do an eruv. Now, which eruv are we talking about over here? We're talking about, the simple explanation is eruvei chatzerot ve'eruvei tchumim. There's two kinds of eruvin. Eruvin of the courtyards coming together, like we just mentioned now, or Eruv Tchumim. Eruv Tchumim, we're going to learn soon what it is. It is connecting two properties together, as we're going to see later on.
Go from one to the other.
Yeah. Veyesh mefershim, there are those who explains, me'arvin Eruvei Tchumim davka. It says specifically Eruv Tchumim, which we're going to discuss soon. She'ilu Eruvei Chatzerot, because Eruvei Chatzerot, he says you're not allowed to do it bekol mazon, with any kind of food. When it comes to a courtyard, you have to do it with how? En ma'arvim ela bepat. You're only allowed to use bread to do the courtyard. Usually you use it, matzah. Because
one of those eruvs, what you do when a holiday is close to Shabbat?
No, that's Eruv Tavshilin. That's something else. That's in order to permit you to cook. Something else completely. Yeah, it has to do with Yom Tov. Okay? Umishtatfim. And also we do the shituf. What's the shituf? Shituf is like we say, we have courtyards, and many courtyards who use the same street also have to do between themselves. So this courtyard with this courtyard, with this courtyard, with this courtyard. Umishtatfim shitufei mevuot. This is called to make the street into a private domain. So you're allowed to use everything.
Public.
Private. If it's public, they're not allowed to. To make
private.
it.
It's a private already.
To make it seem like private, even though we know it's private now, if you don't make an eruv, you're going to afraid you're going to take out from their house to the street, to this street, and then you're going to think, oh, if I'm allowed to take it to this street, I'm also allowed to take it to the other street. So now that you made the eruv, oh, I remember the eruv is only for this street. It's not for the other street. It will remind you not to take to the real street outside. So it says so let's make this Mishnah easy. Let's talk about eruvei tchumim or eruvei street, not eruv chatzerot. We're not talking about eruv chatzerot. It's going to make this Mishnah much easier. Okay? So you're allowed to use anything except what? Chutz min hamayim u'min hamelach. You're allowed to use everything except water and salt, because it looks like a very interesting concept. It looks like water and salt is not food. That's what they're saying. They're pretty much saying it's not called food. Water and salt is not food. Everything else is food. Lefi she'einam mazon, because they're not food. B'Gemara mevuar, in the Gemara it explains, שמה שנקטה המשנה בכל מערבין ומשתתפים, that the Mishnah says in everything you're allowed to do in Eruv, and in everything you're allowed to make the street belong to these guys, לאו דווקא הוא, it's not necessarily, ואין למדים מן הכללות אפילו במקום שנאמר מחוץ. And we cannot learn בכל. It's not exactly in everything. It says don't learn in everything, really in everything. Usually if it says in everything, it means in everything, but not over here. שהרי גם כמהים עם פטריות אינם חשובים מזון. Because also, what do you call it? Mushrooms are not considered to be food. So it's not only water and salt, but including mushrooms. ואין מערבים, and you're not allowed to do in עירוב, ולא משתתפים בהם, you're not allowed to make the street, okay, with them. והכל ניקח בכסף מעשר. And you're allowed to use the money of Meiser for this particular food. In other words, you're allowed to use Meiser money for an Eruv. The Meiser money, you're supposed to do what with it? Eat it in Yerushalayim. So this Eruv, you're supposed to eat in Yerushalayim. Nevertheless, you're allowed to buy something, put it over there, and it is considered what? Eruv, a good Eruv. Even though you're not in Yerushalayim, you're in Beersheba.
No, the money is holy. The maaser.
The problem is the problem is the food. The food that you bought with the money now, you have to go and take it eat in Yerushalayim. But it says you're still allowed to make an Eruv with it.
It's right.
Even though it says doesn't make sense, you have to eat it where? In Yerushalayim. It says, it doesn't say where you have to eat. I can take the food later on and eat it in Yerushalayim. It's still considered an Eruv. Yeah?
So they say
Even though that right now I cannot eat it. But since I can eat it in Yerushalayim one day, I'm considering it a good Eruv. Yeah.
Because it's food. That's
Because it's food. Yeah. Yeah, it's food that I'm allowed to eat it somewhere. Right? We're going to see soon. הפודה מעשר שני שלו ומעלה את כסף הבדיון ירושלים. This is the second tithe that he is supposed to eat in ירושלים. רשאי לקח שם בכפס זה כל מיני מאכלים ומשקאות, כמו שכתוב, is allowed to buy all kinds of food and drink, ונתת הכסף בכל אשר תאווה נפשך. It says that you're allowed to give the food in all that you desire. So everything is about, וחוץ מן המים ומן המלח. It says, except the water and the salt. It says, why not water and salt? שלמדים מן הכתוב. We learn it from the verse. בכלל ופרט וכלל. With the rule of when you have a rule, and then you have a particular, and then you have the rule again. An instant, the rule, then one instance, and the rule again. שאין ניקחים בכסף מעשה שנים, אלא דברים שהם פרי מפרי וגידולי קרקע. That you are only allowed to take Meiser Sheni, things that, it says by Meiser Sheni, what are you allowed to buy? You're allowed to buy only fruits and fruits of fruits and something that grows from the ground. Yeah? So what does it mean? By the way, a sheep is also called fruit. It's a fruit of, it's learned over there also. Yeah, that the sheep is also considered to be something that comes from, yeah, like a fruit. That's right. What happened? Hanoder min hamazon. Somebody says, I'm not going to eat. I'm not going to eat. I make a neder, I make a vow that I'm not going to eat for a week. Or I'm not going to eat for a day. I'm not going to eat this Shabbos. I'm not going to eat ever. Whatever. Hanoder min hamazon. Somebody made a vow he's not going to be able to eat. בגמרא מבואר שאין הכוונה כאן שאסר על עצמו מזון. It says that he didn't, the Gemara says it doesn't mean that he says I'm not going to eat ever. שכן מזון אינו כולל אלא חמישת מיני הדגן בלבד. Because when you say מזון, בורא מיני מזונות, we only mean the 5 grains. אלא הכוונה הוא שאסר על עצמו בנדר כל דבר המזין. He said I'm not going to eat anything. Chocolate, nothing. That's what he said. So it says if somebody said such a statement, I'm not going to eat food, you know there is 2 things he's allowed to eat.
Water and salt.
Water and salt, it's all considered food. Yeah, it's all considered. So that's what we learned, that you are not allowed to use it as Eruv, something for an Eruv. Mutar b'mayim u'melach. He is allowed to use water and salt, she'enam begeder dvarim hamezinin, because water and salt are not something that can sustain you. You need it as vitamins maybe. It's required, but a person will not grow from water and salt. Yeah, we will not get nourishment, let's call it. Oh, what about a person is a Nazir, right? And you did the Eruv in wine, for example. You made the wine the Eruv. So the question is he allowed to use the Eruv? The Nazir. You're allowed to because you can drink the wine. The question is he allowed to?
He would be able to drink after he finishes Nazir.
Let's say he's a Nazir forever. Or he's Nazir for this Shabbos. Or he's Nazir for this Shabbos.
So
After it's too late, maybe. See, the wine in Yerushalayim, potentially you can eat it in Yerushalayim on Shabbos. I know you potential. In potential you can eat it. Over here, this Shabbos, he's not allowed to drink it.
Okay.
It's more severe.
But next Shabbos he can do it.
Yeah, but this Shabbos is the problem. Okay? Ma'arvin lenazir beyain. But it tells you you're allowed to do the Eruv for a Nazirite with wine. Afal bisha nazir su bishtat hayayin. Even though he's not allowed to drink the wine. מכל מקום מותר לערב בשבילו ביין, הואיל והוא ראוי לאחרים. And this is about Nazir. It doesn't have to be food for him. It has to be food for people. The fact that he's great, that he doesn't want to, that's up to him. He doesn't want to. But since it's befitting to be food, he can do an Eruv with it. He can use it as food for the Eruv. Next, what about you made the Eruv? It was a bunch of Kohanim, and they eat Truma all day long, and they made the Eruv in Truma. So the question is, the Kohanim are allowed to use the Eruv. Is Israel allowed to use the Eruv? So let's see. Israel betruma. It's for the same idea as the Nazir. Yes. Because somebody can eat it, therefore, an Israel can use it as an Eruv.
As long as somebody eat it, that they make the
Can eat it.
then
Yeah.
technically.
Very technically can eat it.
Yeah.
ולישראל בתרומה, וכן מערבים לישראל בתרומה, הואיל והיא ראויה באכילה לכהנים, because Kohanim can eat it. אף על פי שהיא אסורה לישראל, even though it is forbidden to Israel. There's a difference between Nazir, which talks about wine, and then Israel, which talks about Truma. It talks the same logic. It's not the same logic. Because Nazir is the minority, and Israel are the majority. You can't learn from the minority to the majority. That's why it had to say both.
I see.
Yeah? Okay? Israel בתרומה. Sumchus Omer. Sumchus says, Sumchus is the name of a sage. Sumchus says, Bechulin, only in Chulin. It says, Ein me'arvim l'Israel betruma, ela bechulin. He says, I disagree. Maybe you can do it by a Nazir because he's a minority. He goes like the majority. But over here, you want the majority to go like the minority. I disagree with you. It doesn't work this way. So Sumchus says, I disagree. It's only when you're a minority you can use other people's. But when you're a majority, it goes by the majority. It doesn't go by the minority. And since the majority are Israel and they're not allowed to use it, therefore, it's not a good Eruv. It's only a good Eruv for the Kohanim, not for the Israelim. שלדעת סומכוס, according to סומכוס, אין מערבים לאדם, אלא במזון הראוי לו לאכילה. According to Sumchus, you only do an Eruv to a person only in a food that is befitting to him to Achila. The way the Bartenura explains it, he will also disagree on the Nazir.
Why?
Yeah, the way he explains it. But I don't know if that's the regular way. בגמרא מבואר, in the Gemara מבואר, שביחס לנזיר אין סומכוס. Oh, so here it says. So it looks like, no, it's like I explained in the beginning. Yeah. It's because it's a minority. It's a minority issue. שביחס לנזיר אין סומכוס חולק שלא ביין. It says he agrees with the Nazir that he is allowed to make it with wine. מפני שאפשר לו להישאר, from a different reason, not because what I said. So actually he disagrees. For a different.
in the future.
No, he can drink it this Shabbos.
How? When he's a
He
Nazir?
can ask for a chacham להתיר את נדרו, and then he's allowed to. So potentially he's allowed to. מפני שאפשר לו להישאר על נדרו, because he can go to a sage, and the sage can permit him to drink on Shabbos. ויהיה מותר בשתיית היין, and then he will be permitted to drink the wine. אבל בתרומה אי אפשר שתהיה ראויה לישראל. But a truma, you cannot become a Kohen. You know, you're Israel, you're stuck as in Israel, you can never become a Kohen. שאף על פי שהמפריש תרומה יכול אף הוא להישאל עליה, that even though that somebody who set aside truma, he can also be asked on it, כלומר שטעה בהפרישו מזה על זה, for example, when he makes a mistake, when he took from one pile and he was supposed to take from another pile, מכל מקום אסורה לו באכילה. Nevertheless, the entire thing, it's not going to help him even if he asks a Rav to lehatir. He says, I took it from the wrong pile. I meant to take it from this pile. So I made the neder that it's going to be from this pile. So the Rav says, okay, not a problem. So you'll find, just do it again. Night Shabbos, you can't do it again. So do it again after Shabbos. Yeah, but right now it's tevel during this Shabbos, so then you're stuck. Sharei chozeret liot tevel, because now it's not allowed. This thing, not to you, it's not allowed to anybody. It's not food. ואסור לאכול ממנה עד שיחזור ויפריש תרומה אחרת. You're not allowed to eat from it until you're going to redesignate it or re-tithe it. And you're not allowed to tithe on Shabbos, so you're stuck. ואין מפרישים תרומה בשבת. You're not allowed to tithe on Shabbos, אפילו בין השמשות, even if it is right between the times. Another things we're going to discuss over there. ולכהן בבית הפרס. This is, okay, let me explain what's going on over here. Beit HaPras is a place where you know that there was a dead person buried. For example, in wars, they used to bury immediately. There was no time to go in Zeu. So you know that in this field there was a battle and people were buried. And then the owner of the field came like 5-10 years after the thing and he plowed the field. So we're afraid that what's going to happen, that all the buried bodies, when he plowed the field, they're going, all the bones are all over the place. So this is called the Beit HaPras. They have signs, they put signs, and used to tell the Kohanim, guys, don't go into those fields. Those fields are battlefields, and in battlefields, now we're not sure that it's there, but we know this field was plowed and we know it had graves before. So don't go over there. So the question is, let's say the situation was like this. We'll use this situation. This is a town. This is another town. You're allowed to walk outside of the city limit on Shabbat 2,000 amah. Like 1,000, approximately 1 kilometer. Yeah? About 2,000 amah you're allowed to walk outside the city limit. You have a Brit in the next town. So you want to be able to walk to the other town. But in order to walk to the other town, you're not allowed to walk more than 2,000 amah out of the city limit. So what do? The other town is 3,500 amah. So you can put out of this town, 2,000 amah, you can put food right in between, and then you have another 2,000 amah from the food. And then you can reach the other town. So you're allowed to do that on Shabbat. You're allowed to travel this distance on Shabbat. The question is, what happens if you put the food in this Beit HaPras?
You're a Kohen or you're not?
It doesn't matter. Now, let's say you're a Kohen or not a Kohen. The question is, can a Kohen now use it? This Eruv. Yeah? If, let's say the Kohen did it or Kohen didn't do it, is the Kohen now will be allowed to use the Eruv because he cannot reach this food, even in potential? That's the question. Okay. So let's discuss this case. ולכהן בבית הפרס, a Kohen in a field. שדה שנחרש בו קבר. It's a field that it was plowed when there were graves inside. 100 אמה מסביב לקבר נקרא בית הפרס. So it says 100 אמה from around the kever, you are worried that maybe the bones got dragged there with the plow. היינו שטח שיש בו ספק טומאת מת. This is an area that we have doubt, maybe there's a dead person over there. ועפרו מטמא בדברי סופרים במגע ומסע. And the dust, the sand over there, if somebody goes in there, according to the rabbis, it becomes tameh. It's tameh from the rabbis, not tameh from the Torah. It's impure from the rabbis. שחוששים שמא גררה עם המחרשה, עצם כשיעורה מעצמות המת. We are worried that maybe the plow grabbed the bone and took it with it. פרס מלשון פרוס, פרוס לרעב לחמך. פרס, which means cut, to cut. Just like it says, cut bread, so this grave was cut. It was moved to another place. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. שעל ידי החרישה נשברו ונתפזרו עצמות מהקבר. That through the plow it became detached, let's call it detached and moved
That's scattered all over
and
the
scattered.
city, like-
So you have to worry 100 amma from the grave. 100 amma, 50 meters. ובא המשנה ללמד, the Mishnah comes to teach.
But why can't they take the bones away if they see there is bones?
It's very small.
Oh.
It's very small.
They're even the size of a barley corn.
Yeah.
Oh.
You're not going to go in...
No, I thought that they see עצמות.
Too much trouble. And also, the regular guy doesn't care. The Kohen cares.
Yeah.
I don't care. It's actually good for me. It's good.
Yeah,
Food
it's
for the
fertilization.
food for the plants. Yeah, yeah. So the regular guy doesn't care. He just cannot go to Beit HaMikdash. You know, but he doesn't go to Beit HaMikdash now. He's going to go in 3 months from now. What does he care now? Yeah, before he goes, he will go to the mikveh. Yeah. שאף על פי שאסור לכהן להיכנס לשם מדברי סופרים, even though a Kohen is not allowed to go into there because of the rabbis, מכל מקום התירו חכמים להניח שם בשבילו עירוב תחומים. The sages allowed to put over there עירוב תחומים. It says, but how? He won't be able to go inside. It's not even a potential for him. לפי שהוא יכול להיכנס שם למקום עירובו כשהוא מנפח והולך. Because even the sages says he's allowed to go into such a place. How you're allowed to go into such a place? You're allowed to go into such a place if you go very carefully and you look very nice and you go and all the bones that are there, yeah, like that. So it says even though it's not likely, nobody's going to do it, but things theoretically it can be done, therefore it is good enough for him. That's right. היינו כשהוא בודק את הדרך בשעת הילוכו, when he checks it very very well, שאינו נוגע בעצם כשעורה. That he doesn't touch even a small bone. So he says, even though we tell him to stay away, theoretically he can do it, so therefore we can do it. Rabbi Yehuda אומר, Rabbi Yehuda says, I don't need this research. He says, even if I'm going to put it in a cemetery, inside the middle of the cemetery,
Well, for sure he can't go in.
for sure he can, and he can still use the Eruv. Rabbi Yehuda says, how? Rabbi Yehuda says, אפילו בבית הקברות, even in the middle of the cemetery, שטומאתו מן התורה, that the tumah over here is from the Torah. It's the middle of the cemetery. מותר להניח עירוב תחומים בשביל כהן. You're allowed to put an עירוב תחומים for a Kohen, and he's allowed to use it. How? מפני שיכול ללך לחוץ. Because there are ways to go for a Kohen inside, into a בית קברות, into a cemetery. How does a Kohen go? He can go into a box. He can go in a box and people will carry him inside. So he's got mechitzot, he's got boundaries all over the place. Yeah. So there are ways that even a Kohen can go into the middle of the cemetery. Even that's considered to be theoretical enough for him to use them there.
Also there is a lot of places, Batei Kvod, you have the Kohanim walk, where the Kohanim...
As long as there's fences.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's not Bet Kvarot there.
Huh?
It's not considered Bet Kvarot.
It's fine, they all Kohanim, they're Kohanim.
Yeah, because there's a fence.
Okay.
The fence separates you between you
So
and the Kvarot.
technically here, they can make the Kohen fence to
Yeah,
go to
but
the Eruv.
but usually they didn't do that.
Theoretically.
Yeah, for example, in some places that they do, usually it's 1 kever or 5 kvarim, and so they will do on the boundary. They will do a fence, and you can go on the boundary as a Kohen. But the problem is, what is in the middle of the cemetery? You've got on this way or on this way, both ways. You have kvarim. How are you going to make a fence? So they do. They have fences on both sides.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Like
they,
you go to the tziyun.
yeah. So they make fences on both sides. But even before that, you know what people used to do? There used to be a box. There's a box for Kohanim, it's called. And you used to go, you put your hands inside, there's handles inside, and you used to walk with the box. So
wow.
you have a box around you the entire time.
Your feet on the ground.
That's right, and there's a box around you the entire time. So he says, since Kohanim can do this, even if you make an Eruv in the cemetery, he can still go. מפני שיכול ללכת לחוץ, ויש גורסים, מפני שיכול לחוץ וללך. It says, יכול ללך לחוץ, doesn't mean ללך לחוץ. He can make a מחיצה, that's not מחוץ from outside. He can make a מחיצה and walk. He can make a boundary and walk. כלומר, לעשות מחיצה בינו ובין הקברים, he can make a boundary between him and between the graves, שלא יטמא, that is not going to become impure. כגון שיכנס לשם בשידה תיבה ומגדל, he can go inside a box, for example, ולאכול, or in a car, for example. Inside the car, it's completely closed. ולאכול, and to eat, שם את הריבה, and he can get the food over there and eat it. So potentially he can go in, so don't bother him. Okay? הילקח קונה לו עירובו אף בבית הקברות. Therefore he is allowed to make an eruv even in בית הקברות, and potentially he can eat it. Again, we see that the idea is, can he use it on Shabbat?
In potential.
In potential, that's right. בגמרא מבואר, in the Gemara it explains, שאפילו בישראל נחלקו חכמים על רבי יהודה. The Gemara says, Rabbi Yehuda is wrong. If you put a food in a cemetery, not only, the sage says, not only a Kohen cannot eat it, no one can eat it. Nobody can use it. No one will be allowed to use it. He says, why? What's the problem? Let's see. So the sage says, nobody is used. So Rabbi Yehuda completely wrong. וסוברים שאסור להניח עירובי תחומים בבית הקברות. The sage says, you're never allowed to use a cemetery as a place to put the food. ולא נקטה משנה כהן, אלא להשמענו את דעתו של רבי יהודה. And the reason why our Mishnah used the word Kohen, just to tell us that there's an opinion of Rabbi Yehuda that makes a distinction between pras and the cemetery. But that's it. שאפילו לכהן מותר לערב שמה. That even a Kohen is allowed to use over there. והטעם מחלוקותם, he says, why are they saying nobody is allowed to use a cemetery, according to the sages? הוא לפי שבית הקברות אסור בהנאה. There's a concept that a cemetery is not allowed to be used for benefit. You're not allowed to benefit from a dead person. Yeah? There's no benefit. So therefore a cemetery is not there to be used.
When you go to you ask for him to give you this.
That,
to the tzaddik,
benefit means cash.
Oh, cash.
Benefit means cash. Something material. Yeah. Over there to daven, when you go to pray, it's a spiritual things. Yeah. Yeah, you can ask whatever, but it's a spiritual thing.
You can get geshmiut.
That's right. He's not going to give you $1.
Okay.
You know, you might get $1 for somebody else, but not from him. אלא הואיל ואין מערבים עירובי תחומים, but since with the only reason we do this עירוב תחומים, we put the food in that particular place, כי אם לדבר מצווה, the only reason you would do it is because there's a brit, there's a circumcision or something that you need to go there. Otherwise, the sages do not allow it. If you just want to visit your friend because you feel like visiting him, they don't give you permission to do it. It has to be a good reason. ומצוות לאו ליהנות ניתנו. And we have a rule that the commandments were not given for enjoyments. In other words, you might enjoy to do a particular commandment, but that's not the reason why the commandments were given. They're not for us to enjoy. לפיכך סובר רבי יהודה שמותר להניח עירוב בית הקברות. This is why Rabbi Yehuda says you're allowed to make an עירוב in the cemetery, ואף על פי שהעירוב נשאר שם גם לאחר שנעשתה בו המצווה. And even though the עירוב remains there, even after the mitzvah is done, like you went over there already. You went to the next town. שהרי הוא קונה לו בין השמשות, because at the moment Shabbos comes in, you're already permitted to walk all the way through. וישו משתייר שם כל שבת. And the food is going to remain there the entire Shabbat. מכל מקום סובר רבי יהודה שאין דה מקביד על עירובו אם יגנב או יאבד. So it says the person doesn't care if it's going to get lost or going to get found. So he doesn't have to put over there a guard to make sure nobody eats his food. As long as there was food over there at the time that Shabbos comes in, now I'm allowed to take the whole thing. לאחר שקנה לו שביתה, after he's already, when Shabbos comes in, he's allowed to walk the whole day. וכיוון שאין כאן כל הנאה, so he says, where's the enjoyment? There's no enjoyment over here. What do you want? מותר שיקנה לו העירוב בבית הקברות. This Eruv can buy for him inside the cemetery. אבל חכמים סוברים, and the sages, how do they hold? שאדם מקפיד על עירובו. It says no, a person cares about the food. He doesn't want it to be gone after it. That's the argument. Does the food need to be there, or does the food doesn't need to be there? It says, in other words, Rabbi Yehuda says, after Shabbos comes in, nobody cares about the food. Rabbanan says, you're wrong. After Shabbos comes in, a normal person cares about the food. He wants to eat it. Yeah? There is a thing that connects it, that connects him to. והוא רוצה שהוא לא ייגנב. He doesn't want it to be stolen. הילקח כשהעירוב משתמר בבית הקברות. Therefore, when this food is guarded, so-called guarded in the cemetery, לאחר שנעשתה מצוותו, after the mitzvah is done, you're using the cemetery to what? To guard your food. Rabbi Yehuda says, at the moment Shabbos comes in, I'm not using the cemetery. I don't need the cemetery anymore. I don't need the food. That's right, it doesn't do anything. The Chachamim says, no, it's still guarding for you. Since it's guarding your food, it's placed over there, you get a benefit, and therefore you're not allowed to use it. נמצא משתמש באיסורי הנאה, you are using something which is forbidden to use for enjoyment, שהרי בית הקברות אסור בהנאה, because the cemetery is not forbidden in enjoyment. הילקח אסור לאדם להניח עירובי תחומים בבית הקברות. Therefore a person is not allowed to put עירוב תחומים in בית הקברות. He's not allowed to put this food between the two cities in the cemetery because, and this is also the halacha, that is not allowed. You're not allowed to use a cemetery because you're using the. So theoretically, from Eruvim rules, it's not a problem. A Kohen can use it and whatever. But because the rabbi says do not use a cemetery as a food, enjoy a cemetery, therefore we're not allowed to.